Hello, I'm Janine Turner, founder of Constituting America. Welcome to our annual academic study entitled History Holds the Key to the Future, or as Shakespeare says, what's past is prologue. This year's study is entitled The Genius of America, A Journey into Our Republic, a study on Alexis De Tocqueville's Democracy in America. It has been remarked several times that industrialists and men of commerce are possessed of an immoderate taste for material enjoyments, and commerce and industry have been blamed for that. I believe that here the effect has been taken for the cause. Alexis De Tocqueville. This essay is based on the chapter, What Gives Almost All Americans a Preference for Industrial Occupations, and How an Aristocracy May Emerge from Industry. Volume 2, Part 2, Chapters 19 through 20, pages 525 through 526 of Democracy in America, the edition by the University of Chicago Press. Guest essayist, Dr. Melissa Matthes. It has been remarked several times that industrialists and men of commerce are possessed of an immoderate taste for material enjoyments, and commerce and industry have been blamed for that. I believe that here the effect has been taken for the cause." End quote. In this rather remarkable chapter, what makes almost all Americans inclined toward industrial professions, Alexis de Tocqueville offers a sociology of Homo economicus. Conditions of equality, he asserts, make men industrious. Equality makes him, quote, active, enlightened, free, at ease, full of desires, end quote. And thus he begins to conceive, quote, the taste for material enjoyments, end quote. Industry and commerce, de Tocqueville insists, are democratic man's natural inheritance. In addition, because man's natural inclinations make him restless, appetitive, and fearful, these qualities, too, turn him toward commerce and industry, as well as its corollary, wealth accumulation. Agriculture, on the other hand, is static and more often the purview of those who already have wealth and can tolerate the slow process of accumulation it provides. Quote, one is enriched by it only little by little and with difficulty, end quote. For de Tocqueville, this explains as well why aristocratic societies, the landed gentry, so to speak, are agrarian rather than industrial. There is a psychology as well to de Tocqueville's Homo economicus. Although there is no mention of families or of women, not wives, sisters, or mothers, it is the relationship between fathers and sons which also animates the industrial impulse. Men work because they are both competitive with their fathers and fearful for their sons. Quote, in democratic countries, a man, however opulent one supposes him, is almost always discontented with his fortune because he finds himself less wealthy than his father, and he fears that his sons will be less so than he. Most of the rich in democracies therefore dream constantly of means of acquiring wealth, end quote. Commerce fills, quote, the imagination of the crowd, end quote. Quote, those who live amid democratic instability constantly have the image of chance before their eyes, and in the end they love all undertakings in which chance plays a role, end quote. Because democracies make everything or anything possible, de Tocqueville calls it instability, democratic citizens are enthralled by all things in which chance is involved. Perhaps de Tocqueville was right. It is one way to account for the American obsession with lottery tickets, with DraftKings and all other forms of gambling. He elaborates, it is not just the gain that it promises, it's the, quote, emotions that it gives them, end quote. Taking chances, then, is a democratic impulse. These paragraphs are quickly followed by a celebration of rapid progress that Americans have made. Quote, They form the second maritime nation in the world. The greatest industrial enterprises are executed without difficulty. Americans arrived only yesterday on the soil they inhabit, and they have already overturned the whole order of nature to their profit." End quote. In notes on this chapter, de Tocqueville cautions that because of this focus on industry, quote, "their minds become accustomed to substituting in everything the idea of the useful for that of the beautiful." End quote. Page 978 of the Yale manuscript. And it is this critique which begins to help explicate the rather unexpected next chapter. Chapter 20, How Aristocracy Could Issue from Industry, seems to unravel what the previous chapter so enthusiastically commended. It is a warning for how democratic equality can become undone. Echoing Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations, de Tocqueville notes how economies of scale are a font of freedom for the worker. Quote, "The general production of the work comes more easily," end quote, as well as the source of inexpensive goods. Yet there is a cost to the worker, as Smith notes as well, quote, "that the man in him is degraded as the worker is perfected," end quote. Ironically, it is also like what Karl Marx will name alienation, quote, "He no longer belongs to himself, but to the profession he has chosen," end quote. As the worker is diminished, so the master, as de Tocqueville names him, is extended, and he becomes the, quote, "administrator of a vast empire," end quote. The cheapness that puts these inexpensive objects within the reach of, quote, "mediocre fortunes," end quote, becomes a greater impetus in striving for success by the master. Thus, more opulent and more enlightened men devote their wealth and their science to industry, while the multitude of workers remain trapped in their dependence. It is an aristocracy that develops by, quote, "a natural effort from within the very heart of democracy," end quote. This aristocracy is different than the European model, according to de Tocqueville, because it has no common spirit or object, no shared traditions or hopes. Quote, "There are then members, but no core," end quote. De Tocqueville notes that aristocracy founded by trade is not interested in governing the worker, only in making use of him. Further, in contrast to the European model, much felt obliged by mores and sometimes law to come to the aid of its servants and relieve their miseries. Quote, "The manufacturing aristocracy of our day, after having impoverished and brutalized the men whom it uses, leaves them to be nourished by public charity in times of crisis," end quote. De Tocqueville ends the chapter with a rather prescient alarm. Quote, "For if ever permanent inequality of conditions and aristocracy are introduced anew into the world, one can predict that they will enter by this door," end quote. This analysis dovetails with de Tocqueville's well-known anti-materialism. It is a worry that the focus on wealth will also cause the gradual loss of traditional religious faith, another important bulwark in democracy, as de Tocqueville details elsewhere in Democracy. It is a worry also embedded in his assessment of the ideal democratic statesman, as one who will show how what is just can also be useful rather than merely that the useful can be right. It is a wise recommendation in our time as well. Note, in 1954, Yale University acquired the quasi-totality of de Tocqueville's manuscripts, as well as the final draft of Democracy in America. This collection holds original manuscripts as well as copies of lost originals. Of interest to readers of the edition used for this short essay, the Yale manuscript also includes drafts of the second part of the Democracy, to which de Tocqueville gave the title Rubbish, referring to the English rubbish, meaning debris, remnants, notably misspelled by de Tocqueville throughout. A full chronicling of the manuscript's loss and retrieval and piecing back together can be found in the foreword to the Democracy in America edition, edited by Eduardo Nola and translated by James T. Schleifer. This essay was written by Dr. Melissa M. Matthes. Dr. Melissa Matthes is a full professor in the Department of Government at the United States Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. She teaches courses in religion and politics, ethics, and the history of political philosophy. She is the author most recently of When Sorrow Comes, The Power of Sermons from Pearl Harbor to Black Lives Matter, published by Harvard University Press in 2021. She holds a PhD from the University of California and a Master's of Divinity from Yale Divinity School.